A proud mom, or since this is a UK article, mum, of a trans teen explains how anti-trans debate messed with her head. When Laura's daughter Jessica came out as trans at age 13, she felt, quote unquote, total shock, but believed every word she said. We believed and accepted our daughter from the beginning, even though we were processing a lot as parents. Jessica has been suffering from severe depression and anxiety, she said. I sprung into action and just started reading all I could about the transgender experience. She called the pediatrician, researched gender clinics, and got on a got on a waiting list for an appointment. There was just such a sense of urgency because we feared for her life. One of the first articles Laura stumbled across was one in The Atlantic, a controversial piece titled When Children Say They're Trans by Jesse Singal, which focused on the stories of detransitioners and suggested some young trans men are actually just struggling with the fact that society makes it difficult to be a girl. So, one, that points out a very important issue that we have to deal with, the misogyny in our society and the fact that girls don't feel safe, women don't feel safe with transgender women being in bathrooms because they were born male and because of the fear of men in our society. This person cites detransitioners for a lot of their evidence. And as we've talked about on the show, and if you look into detransitioner stories themselves, a lot of times, or at least the ones that I have found, they will tell you that they're not trans, that they have some other kind of mental diversity issue that presented in very similar ways to gender dysphoria. And because they started talking about it that way, therapists, doctors picked up on that and moved them down the line on transgender care, even though the root issue was not that they were transgender, but they had other coexisting factors involved that were skewing the results of the diagnosis. And that's a very common thing that people are using to delegitimize transgender care, is pointing to these detransitioners. And the point that I try to make very often on the show is that what we're seeing is there is potentially a diagnosis issue of some kind, and maybe there needs to be some kind of greater look into the neurodiversities and the correlation between that and being transgender, not banning trans care for the people that need it and it helps. As a parent of a newly out trans teen searching for help, I read the article by a publication I thought was very legitimate and thought, that does not sound right to me. What he's saying goes against what my child has told me, and it doesn't ring true. So the parent luckily was able to suss out that the experience that was being touted in this article was not what her child's experience was. I had to wade through a lot of articles online that were literally trying to get me to question my child and make it an already challenging time even more so. And that's sort of that's the crux of it, right? Is questioning trans people over and over again about their story, about their decisions, about their claims, really forces them to feel like they're being delegitimized and not being seen. They're being ignored, they're not being accepted, they're being pushed back on for who they say they are, and that leads to a lot of those negative outcomes mentally.